Okay, let's see, more or less everybody's there. Uh, Preeti had some problem at the beginning. I'm not sure if she's able to hear now. Okay, so some of you would have received this slide. Okay, just give me a minute. Some people can't hear. I can also hear somebody's mic. Uh,
Hello. Hello.
yes, who is that? Okay, so what I had sent this slide also through mail to most of you. So what we thought was, as we kind of do this session of on fear, we can work on one of our own fear before we uh, uh, kind of before we work with on children's fear. So we kind of um, use that to understand fears in general. So I would like you to do that. Uh, Shrujana's, Shrujana's headphones are holding her. Okay, we can hear you, Shrujana. Uh, okay, so let's get going. I'm okay. So Shrujana is still not able to figure out. I think Preeti is also having a similar issue. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody has kind of written down one fear. It could be something very small, maybe fear of anything, a cockroach, fear of heights, fear of depths, fear of anything uh, that you have a fear of. It could be a big fear, it could be small fear, it could be something that comes often, or it could be something that comes once in a while, only very situation specific, right? So think about that, and we'll bring this up as we go along. Let me meanwhile move ahead. So my um, my next question is that, let's say a child says I'm scared. Anything. The child says I'm scared of dark. Child says I'm scared to go in a room. Child says I'm scared to whatever, go on a particular ride in the park or whatever. The child says I'm scared. That's the sentence the child says. So what is your response when the child says I'm scared? Typically, what is your response? You can just put it in the chat window. Typically, what would you say when the child says I'm scared? Assuming that you already know what the child is scared of, let's say dark or people, right? Somebody says, "डरने की क्या बात है?" Okay, what are you scared? What's scary about it? Okay. The other question that I want to ask you when you think about the response that you make is that um, so my what on what is your thought when you are saying whatever you are saying? So when you're saying uh, whatever, are you scared? Why are you scared? And so on. Um, just think about what is making you say whatever you are saying. Like like for example, Milind, when you're saying relax, there's nothing to fear, do not be silly, or uh, something like that. So when you're whatever response, what is your thought process? What makes you say that whatever you are saying? Where are you kind of, let's say, operating from? What is your thought process when you are saying whatever you are saying? So just be aware. You don't have to. Okay. So some of us are saying that we think that, yeah, logically there is uh, no need to be fearful. Yeah, Milton says, I want the child to become brave. Okay. Sonal, when you say it's your curiosity, now the problem with fear or with any of these emotional situations is that usually there is no explanation. So if you're wanting to know my thought process, maybe there is no thought process, right? Because what's the thought process for an emotion? Now let's go back to our own fears. When we have a fear, we have a fear. If I'm whatever scared of whatever you are scared of, if I'm scared of heights, I'm scared of heights. And if you ask me, so what are you thinking? I'm not thinking anything. There's no thought process to it. There's no background or foreground to it. Uh, so yeah, a lot of times we want them to kind of overcome it. We want them to kind of, and we think we have the know-how, the logic, or the scenario, or the perspective where uh, that fear is not important. So in some ways, we are with our own thoughts. What I wanted to underline is that somewhere when a child is scared, when the child is expressing his scares either by action or inaction or by um, saying that I'm scared, somewhere we are with our own agenda. Our own agenda is to make the child brave, make the child overcome the fear, uh, whatever my logic, my this. what I'm asking is, or what I'm kind of highlighting is that we are not with the child, and the child is with the fear. So look at it this way: the child is with the fear, but we are with our own thoughts. So we are completely disconnected with the child, and also disconnected with the child's fear. Because when we are looking at the fear, we are looking it as a third person, and if I am not scared of it, then it is not a fear for me. So I cannot understand that fear because I'm not fearful. Uh, so what are we trying to say? We try to say that uh, when the child is scared, number one, we are not with the child. We are with our own thoughts, our own agendas, our own objectives, our own logic, and so on. That's number one. And number two, I'm not with the child's fear. Uh, Did you realize that part also? We're not with the child's fear because uh, we are not fearful at that moment. Only the child can, whatever, feel the fear or whatever. Because it's the child's fear, and I'm not with the child's fear. I'm with my own thoughts about that fear, which is not the fear, which is not the same as the fear. It's like there's one thing as whatever eating a pudding, and there's another thing as thinking about a or eating thinking about the pudding. So we are only with thoughts. We are with some thoughts which we think we have, but we are not with. So we are neither with the child, neither nor with the fear, and that is why uh, more often than not, our reactions like these that. Uh, you know, while our intentions are good, we want the child to overcome the fear. In a way, it is good. I'll come to that whether it's good or not in a little while. But while our intentions are to help the child, let's say, right, because we are seeing it in a different way, but since we are disconnected both with the child and the fear, uh, you see, it normally doesn't help, right? So this realization that, oh, I am leaving the child, I'm also disconnected with the child's fear, which means there's a complete disconnection, is not helping, at least not helping the child, not helping the child's fear, and not helping me because I may get frustrated, or I may just try to say the same thing again and again and then just leave it, or so many other reactions or so many other feelings that we go through once the child is not very, very positive of receiving that. Yep. So what I'm trying to start off is that can we just accept that fear? Maybe somewhere there is a belief in ourselves that the fear is not good, and the fear has to be overcome, or fear has to be dealt with, or the child should become brave, courageous, etc. And that is why we want, uh, whenever the fear is there, to quickly move into it and do something about it. But can we just kind of step back, question our own belief, and say maybe there's nothing wrong in being scared. Maybe there's nothing wrong in having a fear. Maybe it's all right, and maybe I can just accept that this is what the child is feeling, and maybe I can accept the fear also. So I'm accepting both the child and the child's fear, and I can just be with the child without even really trying to know anything. Um, just be there with the child. What would that do? So think of it this way: if you have a fear, let's say if you have a fear of, let's say, height, or let's say depth. Let's say if we say, hey, let's go deep inside the river and see what's there inside the river. Let's say we're swimming in a river, and you say, no, 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 I'm scared, man. I don't want to go inside the river, or it's dark, or whatever. Now, one is that somebody is trying to push you, and the another is somebody saying it's all right. It's all right for you to feel whatever you are feeling. It's okay. So we realize that when we are afraid, we don't want others to do all this to us. We don't want people to say, come on, face it, this is nothing, this is a big no big deal. In fact, it doesn't help us. But in the same way, we end up doing it when the child is scared, or when the child is not able to uh, do something, and we want the child to do that. So we are doing to the child what us, when it is done to us, is doesn't help. So um, can we just realize this and start by just accepting? So that's where I wanted to start off with. Some thoughts, questions, whatever's coming to your mind. Yep. Anybody use mic? Come on the mic. Share.
Ratnesh, I want to know something.
Mm-hmm.
I just shared a small incident a few days back. Again, I connected to my daughter. She is 18 now, and
Mm-hmm.
she was continuously stating it to me since last 1 month. Mom, I'm feeling very low these days.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to be with her, tried to listen to her,
Mm-hmm.
with no comments, none of my thought process in it.
Mm-hmm.
After a few days, she's coming back and she told me, see, every time I come and talk to you, that's really good. You listen to me, I feel relaxed, but you're not able to give me any solution.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was so confused that time as a mother. Now, what should be my reaction to this?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if I'm being with my child all the time, even if she's fearful or whatever, but where am I helping her by just being with her? So I just want to know how it goes then. I mean, I'm trying to be with her, but then the child comes back and says, no, she's not getting the solution from me. She wants me to get back to her and talk about it, how it should be. So how do I deal with it then in that case? So
Okay,
I'm
so
really
yeah,
confused
yeah.
since
So
last 1 month.
we'll possibly I will not be able to address your situation, but that's not really related to fear per se. But let's take still fear as examples and see how we kind of develop this and how you can take that
Okay.
forward. What I am
Hmm.
talking about
Yeah.
is the step that which you seem to have already done in your situation, but I'm saying the first step, or rather the foundation on which we can then take the child forward. So Mohit is asking, how do I help the child? Well, we'll come. I would say we can only help the child provided the child feels kind of accepted. The child feels the child's fear as well as the fear itself, as in the child's state of being scared. Um, sorry. So the child's state of being fearful, of being scared is accepted. If we create that kind of an acceptance inside us and with the child, then we can do a lot of things to help the child. The issue to me starts with us denying, either to the child directly saying, hey, what's the big deal? Come on, there's nothing, this is too small, there's nothing to be fearful about, etc., etc., etc. Or denying it inside us that this is not all right, my child shouldn't be scared, uh, or this will not help the child, and so on. So I'm inside all worked up, though I may not show to the child, but that's as bad, I would say. So once I'm saying, whether we deny to the child or deny ourselves, if we can remove that denial and just say that it's all right, it's okay to have fears, it's actually important, it's actually good, it's actually beneficial for the child, because it is just a way to understand oneself and the life around, and and it's like a textbook, it's like another chapter, it's another experience in life to learn from, to enjoy oneself, to prove some things to oneself, so on and so forth. So if one looks at fears more as a stepping stone to to develop oneself, then it becomes much easier to work with the child because we have accepted the child. So while this may sound as something very simple and straightforward, yeah, we need to accept the child, but to me, most of our attempts to work with the child's fears fail here. We ourselves do not accept the child or the fear, right? And
Very true. It's not easy. It's not simple at all. I know. It's not simple. It's very difficult to accept everything and just be with it. Hmm.
that is why I think we need to look at it from a different perspective. That if you look at some of the beliefs, mm, uh, I have put on the slide is, if we start looking at it from a slightly different perspective, then it becomes slightly, not slightly, more than slightly easier for us to accept the fears, or fear as part of our life. When we say that, yeah, fear is important, we say fears are real. I have my fears. Child will have his own quota of fears. If we say fear, they are positive, they will help in developing and so on. So if we start thinking of it those ways, then we are able to accept the fears and accept the child's journey, meaning these are just part of one's own, I know, it's against the friction or it's against the wind that the kite rises, kind of a thing. So we are, once we form that kind of a belief system, uh, so it's very funny. I'll give you another very interesting example. um, let us say a child is scared of whatever. I was taking the example of depth of water, right, in a river or in a sea. So let us say there is a child scared of water. um, Now, one is, I say to the child, there is nothing to be scared of. Or if I say to the child, okay, come on, come in, come with me, right, and things will be all right. Let's say I say that. So I give a solution that you come with me, and things will be all right, right. Now, when I say this, one is I'm saying it because I think the child should overcome the fear and it's important, and so all those thoughts are brewing inside me, which means I have not accepted the child's state of mind, nor I have accepted the fear, and I'm kind of pushing the child against it. And then when I say to the child, come with me, let's say scenario two, I say the same thing to the child, that come with me, but I'm completely at peace with myself. I have no expectations from the child. I have completely accepted that the child has this fear and it's all right to have this fear. And and as I said, I'm completely at peace with myself. Now, in which situation the same dialogue, the dialogue is come with me, or the same solution, in which situation the same solution you think will be effective? So even a simple thing like, okay, come with me, I will take you to deep waters, can be very different based on my state of mind, the adults or the uh, parents' state of mind. Because if my state of mind is at peace with the child as well as the fear, then the same dialogue is like an invitation. While if I'm troubled inside and I want to push the child, and I'm kind of kind of up against the fear as well as the child's behavior, then the same statement kind of doesn't work. It looks like a rash push. So so the key, I think, still goes back to, yeah, can we accept the child? And as Shrimo is saying, maybe too many beliefs. So maybe that's good news, Shrimo. It means that we just need to do a little bit of homework, that before we go into a situation like that, before we go into working with the child, let me sit down and sort out my beliefs. Let me maybe write them down, maybe discuss them with my spouse. Hey, what are your beliefs? What are my beliefs? Where are we in our beliefs? So maybe we need to start there and see, hey, and what can we change them to, so that we are able uh, to accept. And it's not a faking accept, it's an accept. So let me give you a real example. So this was actually, Mohit is there in the session, so with Mohit's permission, this was actually with Mohit's daughter. We had gone to Goa as a family together, Mohit's family and our family, and his daughter was scared to come out into the sea with us. Me and my daughter were quite inside the sea, where the water was right till up our level. and uh, I was almost constantly every few minutes inviting Mohit's daughter, her name is Radhika, that come in with us, come in with us. Okay, and I think I'm not really remembering the time duration, but I think within a day or so, uh, as in within one trip to the sea and the next trip to the sea, she was inside with us in the sea. Right. Now, I did not use any major strategies, tricks, techniques, nothing. Right? I just said the same thing many would have said, come with us, right? No difference. But I think to me, the big difference was that there was no expectation. I was not trying to fight against her fear. I had no objective that I should make her overcome her fear. I was in complete acceptance of her being fearful and of the fear itself, fear of the depth of the sea. And because we can't see what is inside the sea, we kind of little, unlike a swimming pool where you can see what is inside. So I think the big difference is just that I'm okay with everything. I'm in sync with you, and I'm just inviting you makes a lot of difference. So even these strategies that we discuss a little later in the session, to me, are much less important than the very uh, essence of just being with the child, just realizing that fears are natural, normal. They are part of everybody's life, and they are actually productive. And there is no need to struggle against them, but rather just be with them and then work with the invitations. Some
That was
thoughts?
very nice sharing. I think
Yeah.
a lot depends on how we treat our own fears also.
Mm-hmm.
Like only if we are able to be emotionally present with our own fears, can we accept another person's fears? Because generally we do that to our own fears also.
Right.
What you said, ridicule or question or deny.
Yeah.
Um, and often, when especially with our child, if our child is suppose not coming into the swimming pool,
Mm-hmm.
so our self-esteem, our so much projection of how I look as a parent also depends on that. So when
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of clearing that needs to be done before we can just accept.
True, true, true. Yeah, yeah. Meaning, if you're going to work out of image and art thing that, oh, my child is like this, and obviously those are going to complicate the matters very, very much. So what you're
Yeah,
saying is bang
exactly.
on.
We need
Yeah,
to be aware. Yeah, we
yeah.
need to be aware of so many things to be able to accept.
Yeah, so but in a way, yes. Also, let's look at it in another way. Even if I'm not aware, let's say, and if I'm not getting into all of that, I can little spend little time preparing myself. So let's assume we have to go swimming in the evening, and I know my child will resist that. Now I know it is still morning, and I can spend little time, maybe using a pen paper, maybe use my spouse, maybe even use the child. So any which way, any medium we use, talking, writing, kind of understand, hey, what are our fears? What is my fears? What is my anxiety? What are my beliefs? Ask the child, if the child is willing to be part of this discussion. What are your thoughts about my way of approaching it, and so on. So we can create a little space, I would say, or a time a little in advance, um, and kind of put together these thoughts on you know in front of us, and try and understand it. I've seen this kind of thing kind of helps hugely. So even if you're not getting into the major awareness business and kind of always question your own fears and blah blah blah, even if you're not doing it at a large at a broader scale, you can do it at a very for a very specific thing, right? It could be an exam fear, it could be a swimming fear, it could be a friend fear, bully fear, school fear, new place fear, whatever. We can, but we need to prepare that in advance when we are in a calm and a soothing state of mind. Previous day, spend half an hour on it, talk about it or write about it, and I think that helps us to accept it when it comes. rather than just hoping. Many of us do that. We just hope today. I wish he'll go into the swimming pool or she'll go into the swimming pool. So we're just wishing, wishing, wishing the whole day. And then when it happens at the pool that she says, "No, I'm scared of the water," we again go back to the same thing. So a little preparation helps. Which I think the next to next slide says that let's prepare ourselves. Uh, and that preparation, whether it involves child or not, is secondary. Helps us become more accepting, more in sync with our own beliefs about it. We don't need to change our beliefs. We just need to be aware of our beliefs. I think that's as you said rightly, the awareness is what really helps. So Shimoy, yes, I'm totally with you. Why shouldn't I communicate? I will communicate with the child. In fact, if I can loop in the child in that pre-discussion or preparation, oh, there's nothing like it. It's amazing how children can then understand their own fears and then understand your anxiety also, and understand your desires and beliefs and so on. So it's good to involve the child at different stages. So yes, I would go ahead and say I accept your fear. It's all right to be fearful. You have your share of fears. I have my share of fears. So it's all right. It's bingo. Uh, Anybody, any thoughts, please? Uh, Another thing is that a child needs to understand that different people have different fears. So I can accept a child fear. Let's say a child is fearful of whatever. Let's just continue with the example of water. So let's say I'm scared of water, right? So I may say I'm not scared of it, but I understand and accept your whatever fear of water. Neetu, we are not yet talking about the fear. We are still with ourselves. So we are not saying talk about your fear. I don't think it's easy to talk about fear. We are nowhere saying get the child to talk about the fear. No, 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 no. We'll come to that little bit. So I think you've jumped a little bit. We were just talking about how do I understand my beliefs, my thoughts, and how do I start accepting the child's fears, right? I'm again saying it's very difficult to talk about fear. If you have a fear and I say talk about it, you'll say, what do I talk about? I mean, I'm scared of it, period. If somebody's scared of, let's say, snakes, and I say, no, talk about it. I mean, what do you mean by talk about it? What is there to talk about it? I'm scared of snakes. I'm scared of snakes, isn't it? Unless need to does that kind of respond to your thought, or you want me to? Maybe you can come on mic if you. So I'm saying we're not, I'm nowhere talking about talking about the fear. We're talking about my beliefs. What do I believe? What do I want? So it's more about me. You are supposed to talk. Use a spouse, use a paper, use a, you know, or use the child as a bouncing board to share your beliefs, your thoughts, not the other way around. So you need a listener. You don't need to be the listener at this stage. See, the problem with any emotions is that we really don't want people we don't want to be interrogators to get stuff out of people, because emotions are emotions. They're there. They're just there. There's no explanation to it. So there's no need for them to talk about it unless they want to talk about it. Right? What we need to do is accept those fears, acknowledge the fear, and that holds true for any emotion. So I can acknowledge a child's emotion, and that's it. Okay. Also, I'm putting this slides because I know this is something which is though maybe most of the people in this group may not be using it, but still it is something very very common. At least I've seen it in our society where fear is used for making children do all kinds of things, right from drinking milk to, so fear, when it is used as a, uh, I mean, schools used to use it. I don't know now what's the scenario, but when I was a child, the school would use it. There would be fear of all kinds of things: fear of ridicule, comparison, fear of not being a good boy or a girl, and so on. So fear was used as a way to. So we were made fearful. Maybe when we were born, we were not so fearful. We were normally fearful, I would say, but we were made more than normal fearful when a lot of uh, uh, for a lot of other things, for controlling and disciplining and so on. So let's see if for other situations we can use other ways which we know now exist. We know there are a lot of other ways of uh, working on a, let's say, a behavioral or a food or other aspects of one's life, and one doesn't need to use fear as a quick threat to get something done. Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming everybody's in sync with this and not really using this. Give me a quick yes if you're in sync with this thought that let's not use fear else to make other things work. We can use other approaches to make other things work. So give me a quick yes in the chat window if you're in sync with this. If you have a question or a thought about this, obviously you're most welcome to talk about it on the mic.
I have a thought.
Yeah, please.
So, Ratnesh, while we try not to use fear, and we do not, I mean, we understand some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
but the problem sometimes happens is that life is moving sometimes so fast,
Mm-hmm.
and at times you have to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And in that short period of time, like for example, beta agar padhoge nahi, so you will be really left behind in the class.
Mm-hmm.
You invariably see these things. So it is a way of telling them, showing them fear, right?
Right,
But
right.
अगर वो नहीं बोलोगे, then the problem is then the child might take 1 hour to come around to that. So these things invariably happen. We don't want to do these things, but we, in that rush and just to get things done, these things happen. So I just want to leave that thought.
Okay, so that's a good point, Mohit, and that's also accepting that we end up using these, let's call them as shortcuts to get things done at times. Uh, One way to look at would be that something which I use, that if I end up
One way to
using them.
look at would be that something which
So let's assume I said something like that to the child at that moment. What, and then I later on realized, oh my goodness, why did I do that? Why did I have to say it that way? Just because I wanted a quick result, or I wanted him to finish his homework, or whatever it is. So what I do is I do a repair job, in the sense I can go back to the child in the evening or next day morning or whenever next I have a peaceful time with the child, and I say that, hey, at that time I used that dialogue or used that threat or used this statement, and meaning I'm kind of regretting it, or I don't like that because I don't think that's how it works, and this is so I can go back to it and kind of talk it out with my child, be open, be frank, that I used it at that moment because I was tense, I was in a hurry, or I was all stressed up because I wanted something. But I don't think that's a good way to look at it, and there are other ways to understand why I should study, and or what why I should do certain thing, or why I should not do certain things, or even go back and discuss, hey, how does the school does it this way, how does your peers do it this way, how does your auntie does it that way, and so on and so forth, right? How does your music teacher uses fear? So one can open up a dialogue about it and question these approaches, and so that the child realizes that these are just techniques or tools to get things done, and that one doesn't need to live fearfully, or that's the only way. So we need to, I call them diffusers, diffuse these stress points or these threat points, at a kind of at an interval wherever we feel that either the society or the school or me myself, or anybody could be creating those inside the child. And also that doubles up because the child realizes that, okay, when I am also in stress, I can also come back and the parent is open for a dialogue, and I can talk about how I've been, cornered by using these kind of threats elsewhere, let's say in a school or by a peer or anything like that. So just an open dialogue at a peaceful time, because you see the fear can be used in many different ways. Somebody can use it to abuse the child physically, abuse the child emotionally, abuse the child sexually, and so on. So fear can be used in many different ways by different people. So even if we are not using it, somebody else might be using it. Now, that's why it's important to diffuse it at a various point of times. Yeah, so Neetu, it's an ongoing process. We cannot prove the world in terms of make it, let's say, in every which way kind to the child. And on top of that, as Mohit very sweetly shared, we all ourselves are unkind to the child many times. Not just unkind to the child, we're unkind to ourselves also. So, so it's all right. It's all right for people to be unkind in many different ways, and that is where we need to have these soups of kindness, I call them, once in a while. You can do it possibly every day if that is possible. At least in Arohi, we do it every day. In the evening, we have a time called, we call it as dirt cleaning, which is nothing but, we spend time sharing our thoughts, our dislikes, our threats, our scares, our fears, and our emotions, and kind of, so when we do it that frequently every day basis. Now we say that, hey, if it's important to take bath and cleanse our body, it's equally important to cleanse our mind and heart and souls and so on. So um, uh, these dissolving times, or we don't even call it resolving. See, we call it dissolving, not resolving, because we don't want to resolve everything. Not everything needs to be solved, but everything needs to be put in its proper context.
Ratnesh,
Yeah,
Very
Ratnesh,
insightful.
Mohit here. Can I take a
sure, sure.
go ahead?
Sorry, Mohit,
Can I speak?
continue. Yeah, Mohit, continue.
Yeah. Okay. So Ratnesh, while I agree and I like this approach of repairing that you just talked about, the only problem is that life is all around us is so full of these symbol, fear-inducing stimulus, right?
Right.
Everywhere, whether it's advertising or
Yes.
whether it's the way, the whether it's saying, oh, you haven't insured your family, so you are not being responsible,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then at work, there's this constant thing that there's a rating system and all of that. The
Right.
problem is that there are so many, it's like driving on the streets of Bangalore full of potholes, right? There's so many potholes all around us. If you avoid every pothole, then you would rather go on a different road
Yeah.
altogether where there is none, right? And that probably at Arohi you guys are doing it, but then you are not in any ways. You have charted your own course. Now the question for a lot of uh, normal people like me is either you drive on the streets of Bangalore or you choose to drive outside of Bangalore. And I think most of us are still stuck with choosing to drive in the streets of Bangalore.
Sure.
So I don't know if there's an answer to it, but I'm just thinking, कैसे होगा ये?
No, Mohit, what we are talking about has got nothing to do with which roads you are going to travel, because the fears are still gonna be there. The struggles are still gonna be there, whichever road you travel. So that, I think, is not an issue. Even for the roads of Bangalore, see, we all take bath every day, isn't it? We all take bath every day, and why do we take bath every day? Because we think that there are some germs that comes from all around us, and we need to clean ourselves, right? Now, in the same way, I think it's important that we clean our minds and souls and hearts, and we keep aside a time every day to share, to create a space where the child can share in many different ways. Not just the child, as some of you pointed out, it's also to do with us as much. So we, as well as the child, so everybody in the family shares. I somehow feel that while you are right, we are busy, we are doing a lot of things, but I think we need to keep time for a daily, or if possible daily. I would personally suggest daily because we do it daily and we kind of find it very well. Whichever road you are on, it doesn't matter which road you are on. You still need that daily, let's call it cleansing, and which is where it's not just a repair. It's also gives the child an opportunity to share and share in a non in that in that half an hour. See, when you take a bath, if you look at the water that runs off, the water is dirty, but we don't really look at it. We don't really say, hey, that's dirty water, how dirty you are. No, we are saying that we are getting fresh. We are saying that we are cleaning ourselves. So if I use that same analogy, if we sit together and everybody shares their mind, the idea is not to point at each other and say, oh, so you did like that, oh, so you think like that, and better change your thinking. No, no, no. The idea is to just share and let it flow out, almost like how with the bath, all the, let's call it, the germs flow out. Right? So if we kind of create that kind of in space, um, I think that kind of works very beautifully. So you can use that both for if you have created the fear, so to repair that, or you can use that time and space to also look at others, like how you rightly said, the advertisements are, oh, you will be left behind if you're not whatever wearing this shirt or being fair and lovely and so on. So yeah, all kinds of fears are being created in different ways by all kinds of people, and it's okay, it's all right. Right. So it's almost like spending half an hour with your car, tuning it up so that it can take care of the potholes on the road, whichever road that you are, and which is why I think acceptance plays such an important. So acceptance is the soap, I would say, which cleans off uh, all uh, all the thought. Not that the grime will not be back again tomorrow. Yes, again the same advertisement, the same things may be back tomorrow, but we are little better prepared for tomorrow if you are I know. Uh, uh, if you're kind of thinking about that in advance. The other reason why this is important is normally we react to a fear at that time when the fearful situation happens. When the child is sitting with his notebook and saying, I don't want to study because I'm sure I'm going to flunk tomorrow. Or when the child says, I can't get into the pool. So typically we address the fear when it is striking the child. Yeah. Uh, I would suggest do it much more in advance, right? Yes, and need to kind of a dirt cleaning. That's why we call it dirt cleaning. Uh, at a time when everybody is calm and everybody can talk about it and or share in different ways, maybe draw about it. We will come to the tools uh, in a little while. Okay, let me still take a pause here. Anybody, any thoughts at this stage? We're still at acceptance. Okay, before we get into how,
Ratnesh,
yeah.
Ratnesh, if I can share another one, comparison, right? And I don't know if you're going to address it separately. We use comparison a lot, and many a time we do this to, just to sometimes not to. I mean, obviously, we don't show comparison to our children to because we are being cruel to them, but we sometimes use comparison often to say that, yeah, you should at least be aware that something like this is going on, and you might want to keep that in your thing, right? But then the fear always is that the moment you show something like this, um, you know, immediately in the child's mind, there is that fear. Oh my God, I am not this, right?
Hmm.
Now, if you let the child alone completely and don't show any comparison at all, then the fear also is that the child might miss out on some stimulus, right? Which, so I don't know how to deal with that, man. I don't know if you're going to address it somewhere.
Right. I think Mohit will address it some in another uh, fire burner. We'll bring in the aspect of comparison. As I said, that some of these things we end up using fear, but we know there are other ways of doing it, so we can address it elsewhere. We know many other approaches other than comparison, which will help the child. Uh, you know, whatever in whichever area we want to help the child. So we'll possibly come back to it in another session. Right now, let's just be with the fear. Okay, I'm just uh, reading the long chat message that Gusham Singh has typed. Okay, the thought that I want to share here is that uh, once so we look at that I typically as an adult earlier I used to think that I need to solve this fear thing, right? If a child has a fear, I need to solve it. But as time passed by, I realized that I cannot solve it for the child. The child has to understand. The child has to kind of, yeah, I don't think there's a better word than understand. Child has to understand herself, himself, his fears, her fears, and in the act of understanding, the child's fears will get dissolved. Not resolved, but dissolved. I somehow like that word more, which means that it's not that the fears go away, it's just that the fears are no more a blockage to doing something, but they are only there to as a caution, as a benefit to the child. Right? It's like people say, hey, how do you speak, let's say, take a workshop, speak with so many people. So it's not that I'm not fearful or anything like that. The fear is very much there, but it's not a blockage anymore. It's only there to for me to ensure that I have prepared, that I've done my homework, that I have and so on and so forth. And kind of it works in a very positive, empowering way. Now, the the whole attempt is that we only understand the child and not try to do it for the child, not try to solve it for the child, and and see how we can help the child understand her own fear, his or her own fear. Yeah. So that's where that's our kind of way of looking at it. That we are not going to do it for the child, but the child will only do it. We'll kind of uh, help the child. Okay. So we're talking about some many of you asked how. We're talking about three basic things. We're talking about getting the child to be familiar with the fear, which obviously can only start with if I accept the fear. Because if I'm all the time pushing out the fear, then I have no time to become familiar with the fear, right? But if I spend time instead of pushing it out or trying to overcome it, just getting familiar with it, just getting to know, uh, yeah, um, then I can kind of uh, understand it better, and then I can move on to exploring it, looking at it from different perspectives, different ways, and we'll talk about it in more detail just now. And the third aspect is if when I know that this is going to be part of me, let's say if I know that I'm going to, let's say, go to the pool in the evening, so I prepare, I do things much in advance so that I'm able to you know kind of work with it in a much better way. So these broadly three things: getting familiar, exploring different perspectives, and preparing in advance is broadly how we work. So most of our approaches would fall under these three, right? Let me just move ahead. Let me just deep dive into this and let's see what we can get out of it. But all of these happen only when I have accepted the child and accepted the fear, both of them. I hope you're able to distinguish between the two. One is accepting the child's state of mind of being fearful, and the second is accepting the fear itself. That yes, it's that it's just a fear. It's whichever it is: fear of exams, fear of speaking, fear of depths, whatever it is. So one of the things that one of the frameworks that we use for understanding fear and helping the child understanding the fear is we call it as the past, present, future. So let me just give a quick overview of this. Um, um, we say that fears are either because something happened in the past, so those are the past fears, uh, or it could be something that is happening right now that is making me fearful, or it could be something that is imaginary that's happening in future, right? So let's take some examples. So I would like you to give me some example. Maybe you can just use a chat window of some of your fears. Forget the child for a minute. Some of your fears which you think are past fears, something that happened, something which you are fearful because something happened in the past. What would you categorize as a fear because of the past? Yeah, Nalini, I'm looking for examples from your life. Okay, which refer to past. Yes. So Mohit, when you say fear of confrontation, I'm assuming that in the past you had some instances where when you confronted, it leaded to results which were unpleasant or undesirable for you, not desirable for you, and that is why that fear is there. So Shrimoy, when you say you are scared of public speaking, um, at the time when you did stammer as a child, you were ridiculed or something, or you laughed at or something like that, which is why, right, yeah, fear of losing loved ones to death, yes, 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 about first child having some aspects of the second child also, you're very uh, scared of that, yes. So, right, yep, yep, yep. I think that's Ekta. It shows as Android attendee, but I'm guessing that's Ekta. Right. Angelina's example is a perfect example of one specific incident, kind of imprinting in mind. Yes. Um, even Nani's where the father is using authoritative voice. Okay, so you get my idea. So these are all what we call as past fears or fears which are based on past. Sonal says fear of losing mental peace. Uh, Sonal, is that related to something that happened in the past? Okay, okay, fair enough. Let's take some examples from future. So future fears are fears which haven't really happened to us. We haven't experienced them, but those are like imaginary fears. So, for example, the most common would be, let's say, the monster below the bed. You haven't seen a monster, but you're fearful of that. So one is imagining whatever the monsters below the bed. So share your fears, which you think would be what I call as future fears, which have not really happened. Nalini, you haven't mentioned which is your fear. Okay, the monster. Okay, okay, okay. Um, right, Mohit is talking about financial fears. Kamal is talking about fear related to child. Right. So yeah, some of these are so you're realizing how these two fears are very different. One fear is based or grounded on experience, and it's possibly that experience that plays again and again, again and again in different forms. Uh, while the ones which you're talking about, uh, Sonal, so what is your fear when you say fear of sending daughter abroad? What is the fear part of it? Okay, so Angelina is talking about um, flying fear. In fact, I was talking about fear with children, and this was an example that came up with children also. That they think, oh, it shouldn't be flying on top of a ocean. Yeah, so that's a common fear: plane flying over an ocean. Um, It's obviously an imaginary one. Though these can get some of these future fears can get corroborated by news items. So suppose I have a fear of whatever financial insecurity, or I have a fear of a plane crash. And if there is a news, the news could be in newspaper, the news could be a friend telling about something. So I tend to cling on to that particular news because the imagination also tries to find some anchors or some hooks to kind of hang to, right? So these can get further, you can say, consolidated in a way when we tend to hear those news. We'll not hear the news of whatever a million planes flying safely over the ocean, but we'll hear that one news out of million which where it didn't fly safely. So we tend to pick up. So if somebody shared whatever an example of a child, let's say they was going abroad or not getting good marks or not getting this, we tend to cling on to it. See, I tell you, that child also had a terrible time. Obviously, we are not looking at the million other children who are absolutely fine in their lives, right? So yes, so that's the yeah, um, example of a future fear. Any examples of present fear? Something which you feel because something is happening right now. So suppose you were live with me and I were to say, "Whoa!" and if you kind of jump in your seat. Now that's a very small example of a now fear, right? Which the fear happens because something is happening right now. It is not imaginary. It is not past, but it is happening, at that moment. Nalini, can you elaborate while driving a car? It sometimes happens when
No. Yeah, while driving a car, some like two-wheeler, someone comes opposite direction, and I have applied brakes also. At that
okay,
moment, I feel like as if I have already hit the person.
okay,
It
okay.
happens.
So it's not that
Present,
it's not that
literally.
otherwise you are scared of driving. It's at that moment something happens. You're
No,
saying,
no.
yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes,
got
yes.
it, got it. Munish is saying tax people coming to me. I think I would call that as a future fear, Munish. That's not a present fear. Uh, present fear would be when a tax person comes to you and says, "Hello, Munish, I'm from the IT department," and then you start fearing, and he says, "You've just won a lottery or whatever. I've got a cake for you because I like your face," or something like that. So, so otherwise, so if somebody thinks that tax people will come, or somebody thinks that robbers will come, then that's an imaginary fear, or the monsters will come, right? So then that's more like a future fear. But present fear can be, let's say, those are simple fears. Yes, I think Kamal's example is a present fear. Yeah, about the job part. Present fears can be simple fears. You're sitting in a bus and the person opposite you looks scary, right? And you kind of fear that, okay, this guy might take my purse, or this person might hurt me or trouble me, bother me. It could be that way. It could be that you know, whatever. Uh, you are in a whatever plane or whatever you're going, like if you're going and you may say, oh, where's my passport? I'm scared that my passport will get lost, and you cling on to your passport, but that's only that momentary. Yeah. I know it is kind of a little imaginary also, but it's more because you are in that context or in that situation, right? So those are more of present fears, which are typically happening because of somebody or some surrounding or some situation at that moment. Yes, it can be when the child falls ill. That can also be a present fear, assuming that you don't have a future or a past fear about it. At that moment, you are fearful. Once the doctor tells you, no, there is nothing, there is no germ in it, nothing in it, and you are again back to kind of, you're fine by it. So yes, it could be because if suddenly the temperature shoots up, or suddenly the wound or the blood is bleeding out, let's say child falls down, and you're kind of scared at that moment because something has happened at that moment. Uh, let us talking about, okay, purchases because there is a sale. Yeah, maybe that's a fear, but I'll possibly not put that as a fear. Though it does use a similar emotion, the opposite of fear, which is the kind of the desire to, or whatever, the temptation to get something. But it could be, yeah, through. Yeah, so in some ways it could be a fear of losing out on a good deal at that moment, and because of that you go and buy. Okay, so we've I think more or less we are all in sync with these fears. So the past, present fear. Now, what I'm going to propose is something that in this session I'm not going into in great detail, but maybe in another time, if you want to understand the background of this thought process, we can go into how our thinking works. So when maybe we do a more detailed session on thinking skills. But right now, what I want to you to realize that our fears can be put into these three buckets. And it's very interesting that if we if we have a fear which, let's belong to a past bucket, what we can do to help to understand that fear, or to look at that fear differently, is to look at it from a future window. Similarly, if we have a future fear, we can look at it from a present or a past window. Similarly, if we have a present fear, we can use it by looking at the past or a future window. So what we do is we change the window from which we look at. So for example, if we have a past fear, uh, so many of you shared a past fear, let's say some experience that you had in the past, then instead of thinking about the past, we actually start thinking about the same thing in futuristic terms, in imaginary terms. We think about what would happen in the future, or how can it be in the future, what all different things can happen in the future. So we kind of explore the whole dimension of the fear in many different directions, but using the future window, not the past window. We know that this happened in the past. Now we want to create many different future scenarios. Similarly, if we have a future fear, let's say of a plane crashing, right, over the sea, then we use the past window. So we go back, we dig out the history, we dig out cases, we dig out examples, we dig out statistics, we dig out data. So now data, statistics, everything belongs to the past. And we kind of use a past or a present to look at the future fear. And in the same way, so what we are doing is we are basically changing the tense. So if it's in the past tense, we are using a present or a future tense. If it's in the future, we are using a past or a present tense, and so on. So we are switching uh, the tense. And what that does is that gives us a different perspective into our fear. It kind of enlarges our fear. Uh, and what we can do now is maybe do one example. So maybe one of you can be a volunteer. We can take up one of your fears, and we can see how we can do it. And then maybe two examples, maybe one or two examples, depending on the time. We can do that and see how we can explore a fear without ridiculing the fear, without trying to fight the fear, without saying the fear is not all right. So in full acceptance of the fear, we are just exploring the fear in a different tense, or a window of a different tense. So should we do that? Should we just, I would need one volunteer to work with one specific fear. Anybody? And I want to work with your fear, not a child's fear. You can in turn work with the child's fear. In fact, this is a strategy which we openly share with children and get them only to use this to kind of explore their fear and understand their fear better and get familiar with it. So we actually, it's so with your child's
Mhm.
fears, you can do it directly.
Can I,
Yes,
Ratnesh?
Nalini.
Can I be volunteer? Because I have this fear of losing. I don't know how to deal with. I'm really frightened.
Losing
And
what?
tomorrow is my mom's birthday. Losing of loved ones. I
Okay.
lost my father and uncle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now I have only my mother and Bua. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm frightened because they are 60 plus and tomorrow is my mom's birthday. So I want to
Okay.
be volunteer. I want to remove that fear of losing my dear ones.
Okay.
So how
Okay.
to deal with that? Like
Sure.
nights I
Sure.
cannot sleep. Uh,
Sure. Sure.
uh,
Okay. So first of all, let's we are not removing that fear. Okay,
hmm,
you have to say to yourself, maybe start with just saying it literally, that you accept the fear. There's nothing wrong with the fear. It's not something bad about you or bad in your life, this fear. You have to just embrace and accept the fear. Even if it sounds fakey right now, start with that. Start saying with yourself that, it's all right if I have this fear. I don't have to remove it. I just need to understand it. I need to it's part of me, just as you have whatever 10 fingers, 2 hands, 2 legs, and so on. This is also part of you, and it's a feature. You may
hmm,
some people do plastic surgery to change their features, but most of us just enjoy and live with the face and the body that we have been given, isn't it?
hmm,
So we are not trying to remove your fear, because then you are working against the fear. Then the more you push, the more you get pushed back. Right? So
hmm,
that's very, very important, because that is exactly, we need to accept the fear and accept yourself as fearful about it. So both the things. So you say, so I want you to try and saying it loud to all of us, that it's all right for me to be fearful, and it's all right for this fear to be part of me and my life.
hmm.
Say that. Let's see how you feel
Okay,
after
I have
that.
to say now. Yeah. Okay. It's all right to be fearful of this fear.
Say that. Say the fear.
I'll accept fear as uh, fear of losing loved ones. It's all right to be having fear of this.
Wait. Nalini, I couldn't hear you. I've actually switched off my video to see if that is causing a bandwidth issue. I couldn't hear you properly. So you don't use the word this fear. You actually state the fear. Go ahead. Please
Okay.
say it again.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's all right to have the fear of losing my loved ones to death. Did you hear,
Yes.
Ratnesh?
Yes. It was clear now. Thank you.
Uh,
And talk about, so that's accept yourself. Say also that it's all right for this fear is part of me. It's part of my life. It's part of my. So I accept the fear. So accept the fear also, uh, and also accept yourself for having this fear.
Okay. So it's all right to have the fear of losing loved ones to death. I'll accept myself with this fear and it's part of me. So I accept myself with all these fears.
Awesome. How do you feel?
Yeah, strangely I'm feeling a little bit relaxed and I
I-
didn't know that it will help me. Like it's really surprising.
Even I don't know if it will
Something
help.
like I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, as if something was like a heavy thing was in my heart and something I'm feeling a little bit lighter now. I
Hmm.
let out this fear, no? So maybe I don't know how it happened.
Yeah, so it's important that we accept the person, in this case yourself, and accept the fear. Both the things. If it's with a child, that we need to accept both of them. And we need to help children to accept themselves, just like help them accept their height, color, nose, religion, or whatever, society, whatever, family, relatives. We didn't choose all of these, right? A lot of these just came to us. So just like this, the fear also came to us. So we just accept the fear, and we accept ourselves for having this fear, and that's very important, because everything else is based on the realization that they are part of me, and not fighting against them, not trying to remove them, but trying to be with them, trying to understand them. So maybe it's a good idea to say also, that say to yourself that I just want to understand my this fear. So whichever the fear is, say it out and say, I want to understand this.
Mm.
Go ahead, say that.
I want to understand my fear of losing the loved ones to death. I want to understand.
Somehow, I don't know what others are experiencing, but when somebody uses the word I want to understand, there, there seems to be an invitation. There seems to be a joy. There's no resistance. There's no push and pull. Oh my goodness, I need to remove it. Come on now, where is it? How do I get it out? That thing is not there. There's to me there's harmony. I'm now one with the fear, and I can just be with it, and I just want to understand something. Understanding something, no big deal. It is just a journey, and not that I will be able to ever fully understand it. There is no need to do that. Just like I can't understand whatever weather fully, or city fully, or people fully, or my spouse fully, or children fully. So there's no need to fully get it. But when we say I need to overcome something, there needs to be a fullness in this, a completeness in this. While when we say that we need to understand fear, there's a sense of journey, that okay, we've started a journey of understanding, and it will be an ongoing process.
Mm.
Does that make sense? So it's important that we realize that it's just a journey that we are taking. It is not that within this session, or within today, or within tomorrow, or within 1 week, or 1 year, or one lifetime, some magic will happen, because we aren't trying to create any magic. We're just trying to understand something which is part of ourselves, which we have already accepted. Okay, so Lalita, I don't think I want to divert myself into you know, appearances and all that. We will maybe we need to take another session on that. Uh, but when we say that I accept, or it's okay, and the child says, but to him it is not okay, that's also all right. He's in his own journey. I'm with my own journey, which is why I said this is not about child. This is about me accepting my own fear. So at this moment, let's say if I'm working with Nalini, so let's assume Nalini is a child, which she is, which all of us are. So we are accepting Nalini as having this fear, and we are also accepting Nalini's fear, that it's all right to whatever, you know, feel or have this fear of losing loved ones. So if we're just accepting now, whether Nalini accepts or not, it doesn't matter. But can I first accept? So in your case, can you first accept how the child is, and that's it, and communicate it, even if the child says I'm not okay with it, I want to fight, I want to take it out of it. Okay, you want to take it out, but I am accepting you and your fear. Okay, so we are back to Nalini. Right, Nalini. So when you think about this fear, do you think of this fear as a past fear, present fear, or a future fear?
Um, I get that to my vision. No, that thing comes when the day of both deaths. That comes first,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
then again future. I that visual of that also comes. If like suppose now who are with me, suppose they come into that position, what happens? Like I have both the fears. First, this past comes, and in place of them, I imagine these people. So that kind of it comes
But
future also.
it to me on the face of it, it more appears a past uh, because it does it always start with past? Is it based? Is it rooted in the past?
Yes.
Yes. So the
Yes,
imagination in
yes,
itself does not exist. See, I
yes.
just comparing it to, let's say, imagining a monster or imagining something else. So those are very imaginary fears. Those have not happened. Like Mohit mentioned, imagining financial insecurity, becoming let's say a poor person with no income, right? Being on the streets. Now these are things that have never happened. So those are totally out of imagination. While what yours seems to be more based on the previous losses that you had in your life.
Fine.
Yeah,
Hmm.
right.
Yes,
So
yes,
since it
yes.
is more based on the past, we will use possibly future or and a little bit of
Hmm.
present.
Future, present. Okay,
Yeah. So
fine.
so what I'll do is I'll just guide you for a small imaginary journey. Okay, and just take you into
Yeah.
future. That's it. That's it. There's no um, whatever, no big technology here, right? Very very simple. We'll think of all the future thing, and we'll imagine all the future things,
Hmm.
right? And as I said, it is only another perspective about your fear. One perspective about your fear you already have, which is the past perspective. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So you already have that
Yes.
perspective. Now we are creating another perspective called a
Huh.
future perspective. And we are just going to create maybe
Okay.
one or few perspectives today, but you can keep on creating as many perspectives as you want. Right? So in the coming
Hmm.
days, weeks, months, you can have 100 more perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So others, if you have questions, just hold on with the questions. Let's just do one quick round with Nalini, and then we'll come back to it. So please don't type in the chat window requests. Just let's just help Nalini open up more perspectives, right? And you just observe, and then you can do it with yourself and with your children and so on. Okay, so in terms of future imaginary perspectives, so Nalini, maybe if it helps, you close your eyes because it just helps in more in
Hmm.
imagination. So imagine yourself,
Imagination.
whatever.
Yes.
Imagine yourself to be in your whatever, whichever is your favorite place. It could be a city, it could be next to a beach, in a forest. Imagine you are somewhere there, wherever you want to imagine
Hmm.
yourself to. Whatever is your favorite place, it could be mountain, hill station, it could be your home, it could be any place in this whole world. It could even be an imaginary place. Yeah. So tell us where you are. What have you chosen?
I'm in temple,
Okay.
Sri Raghavendra Swami temple. I am in that temple before Vrindavan. I'm sitting.
Okay. Can you see that
Hmm.
temple around you?
Yeah, temple. That idol also I can see.
Temple, idol also you can see. What else you can see there?
I can see many people around me.
Okay. You can see people
Everyone is praying, and that
praying.
pujari, yeah, pujari is also doing arti,
Mm-hmm.
and he's giving akshata to me,
Okay. Okay.
and I'm folding my hands praying.
Okay. Okay. So while all of this is happening, now let's get a little more imaginary about it. Now let's assume that slowly everything around the temple starts vanishing. We're just becoming we are
Hmm.
imagining this. So people vanish, pujari vanish. It is just the temple and you.
Hmm.
Yep. Can you imagine
Hmm.
that? It's
Hmm.
just you and the temple. The physical structure is all there, but the people have all vanished and only you are there, all alone. Yeah.
Yes, little bit to imagine, but I'm trying.
Yes, yes. So you're imagining, right? It's all imaginary. So imagine just you and the temple, and
Hmm.
you are imagine.
Yes,
So
yes.
imagine you are doing different things. Maybe the temple walls are
Ah,
very soft.
sadhana.
Sorry,
huh.
and you are roaming around. So what you have to tell us
I'm doing
what all.
pradakshina. Yes.
Yes, you are doing pradakshina. In that, what are you walking? Are you imagine that you can float around? So you are floating. You don't need to walk. You can go wherever in the temple. You can just fly as if you are on a spacecraft. So you can just fly around, right? Can you imagine that? You're flying around and doing
Yes.
all the rituals, whatever you
Yes.
want to
Yes.
do,
On that. Yes. 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 Yes.
right? And
I'm
all around you
I'm
are
flying over a broom.
okay, yeah,
Mm.
and you can also imagine things around you. If you want to imagine, there are some animals or flowers
Yeah.
or clouds, or you can add
Flowers
more
are
things.
falling. Yeah.
Yeah, you can add more things to your
Yes.
imagination, and you are also imagining that you are all alone. So all your the loved ones, whoever you want to imagine, are not there. So you have to imagine them. You are alone. You're all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and whoever
Yes.
is your loved one is no more there, and you are just there yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you are at however you are doing whatever you feel like doing. So tell us, what are you doing
Yes.
there? You're all by
And now
yourself.
I'm
Nobody's there.
yeah
Yeah.
I'm doing puja now.
Mm-hmm.
Worshipping the God and I'm chanting
Okay.
doing this puja with agarbatti and all that, and I'm putting flowers on the idol.
Okay.
So
And you
I'm
realize that
closing
you're
my eyes and now I am meditating.
sure.
Hmm?
Yeah. And how does it feel to be there just by yourself? There's nobody else, no loved
Yeah,
ones, nobody. You are just there as you.
I'm feeling as if like I have connection with God and I'm feeling He's with me now. I don't feel I'm alone.
Okay. Then gently you can come back to the present.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't want to ask you anything more. I just want you to stay with this little journey into the future. It was a very small journey, just maybe hardly few minutes, but it was into future fictitious. Okay. Now, what as I was telling to you, you can do many such journeys. Today you went to a temple. Tomorrow you could be on a beach. Third day you could be somewhere else. Fourth day you need not even change yourself physically. You can be in your home or doing your work or whatever you right. But I'm just saying, just go into future and just be with that future part. It has to be imaginary. You can even be 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, 80 years old, so you can actually travel into futures. You could be the 80-year-old lady, and what would be around you, and you can imagine that
Mm-hmm.
like that. So you'll have to do many such journeys. This was just
Mm-hmm.
one such journey.
Okay.
Okay, and you can, as I
Mm.
do it out of your imagination. Obviously, if we had more time, if we were sitting together, and I could have taken you on many such
Mm.
journeys. I could have guided you, but I'm sure you, once you get the idea, you can create your own journeys. You can keep changing variables. There's no right or wrong about it. About how you create an imaginary journey. You can make it more crazy. You can add lots of different things, different elements,
Mm.
whatever it is. You can change any aspect of yourself. You can change your size, you can change your shape, you can become something else, you can change people around you, you can change things around you, can change the time. You can be in whatever 80 years old climbing Mount Everest for all you know. Anything, right?
Mm.
Always
Mm.
connecting back that okay, you do not have the loved ones with you.
Okay.
Okay, because for you, that's, you are seeing that as the future. You're seeing that as whom you have now. You do not have them in future, but in different, playing around with different scenarios. And the more you play around with them, then you see how, what it does. So you have, what you have done is you have something which was part of you. You're just exploring it in many different ways. That's all you are doing.
Mm. Yeah. Ratnesh,
Yeah.
are you there? Yeah, Ratnesh, I'm feeling emotional now, and
I,
yeah, and thanks for helping
sure.
me out in this, and I'll surely be doing it more often. And
Yeah, see how it kind of where it
I
takes you, how
felt
it takes you. Realize
yes,
that we are not
yes,
trying to push out anything because we have already
yes,
accepted it as part of ourselves. So there is no need
mm,
to, within quotes, overcome or shove it away, but there is a need to understand it. There's a need to accept it. There's a need to explore it.
yes, yes. Within that
As
1 minute or so, 1 or 2 minutes, yeah, I got something like spiritual. I experienced actually. I went to that Mantralayam, that Vrindavan, and
yeah,
everything. Actually, I've experienced that. So that overwhelming experience. Really, I thank you for that. And
sure, sure.
nice. I'll do that. Yeah, with different imaginations.
So to everybody, what we are basically doing is, and as Gusham is saying, is we are first accepting uh, our fears as not as anything fearful, but as something which is part of us. We don't need to really face it, but we need to accept it. We need to enjoy it. We need to like it. We need to say this is part of me. And once I have accepted it, and then we can explore it. We can explore it based on past. We can explore it based on future in an imaginary way we did with Nalini, or we can do it as a past thing. We can go back. So let's say somebody is fearful about, let's say, aeroplanes and crashing. I would say, hey, let's start with one of the ways to go back into the past is to read about it. How do aeroplanes work? What on principles do they fly? What kind of safety devices do they have? Browse for what kind of communication systems to have, what kind of backup safety systems, what happens, let's say, if lightning strikes, what happens if engine fails, what happens if they run out of fuel, and so on and so forth. What are the different kind of checks you have? And so maybe spend half an hour, 1 hour, browse, see videos on YouTube. How do aeroplanes work? Most of us don't even really know how do aeroplanes work. We know the basic Bernoulli's theorem, but we may not know beyond yeah, how they really work. So get into that. So now you're going back into past in the sense this is hardcore data. This is something which exists, which is not based on any imagination, but something which is concrete, which is past, right? And read about it. If it's to do with your own life, then you go back, ask people, ask, interview other people. What do they think? How much do they know? Getting familiar with something really helps, especially if you're working on a futuristic. Uh, One of the examples I'll give you, when people come here and then they are scared of snakes, because in our campus it's a 5-acre campus, and it's on a rocky, thorny, dry hill kind of a place where snakes are there. Um, so people are often afraid of snakes, and we say it's good that you're afraid of snakes. First of all, that will ensure that you don't do anything, funny. And the other thing that you do is let's read about them. So obviously, for most people, snakes is an imaginary fear. They've not really feared snakes at all, in the sense they've not really experienced snakes at all. So most of them uh, have imaginary fears. So we get them to read, to see books, get to know the names of different kind of snakes, get to see what are venomous snakes, which are not venomous snakes, get to read how much time does it take if a snake bites you, for you to, how much time do you have to get to a hospital. We talk about which is the nearest hospital, how do we recognize a snake bite, and how do we take you to a hospital, how ready are we. So when people spend time understanding how does a snake venom work, what kind of neurotoxins does a snake has, and so on. So when we talk about it, when we discuss about it, when we see how snakes move, when do snakes bite. So there's all of this is available, documented as videos, as books and stuff like that. Then suddenly it's very different for whoever is the visitor. It could be children. Now, the children become very comfortable. Not that they stop being cautious. See, we are not removing the caution part. We are only making them understand. In this particular case, I'm taking example of snakes or flies or whatever it is, whatever the fear is. If it's a fear based on only imagination, So for somebody who is saying I'm about my child's future, right? I'm scared about it. Okay, so go familiarize yourself with what are the different kinds of professions that children have, what kind of professions my child goes into. Talk about different kind of professions different people have, just the very spectrum of how different people have lived gives us so much of comfort that a child can actually live in that ways, and so on and so on. I'm just giving you some random examples, but this whole thing about moving between tense and exploring and getting ourselves familiar with our own fears and hence start understanding them makes a lot of difference. And the same thing we can do with the child. So let me kind of pause here and take your thoughts. We did a small exercise with Nalini, and in general, we talked about this past, present, future, and understanding fear. So yeah, let me take a pause. Let me take your thoughts. So anybody wants to come on mic, share your thoughts, questions, doubts.
Yeah, Ratnesh, Milind here.
Yeah, Milind.
So one is just let me understand, or you can correct me where I'm. First one is accepting, uh, understanding the fear is there,
Mm-hmm.
then taking it. If you maybe with that, like what you said, no, like in case of no fear which I have, what is he or she going to do? So there are no browsing. So in every fear, there are certain action points or future action points. So which will divert my mind, not just being in a static position and start being grooming or just brooding over the fear, but
Mm-hmm.
gradually maybe the way I will start devoting time to fear, identifying, understanding, mind will start working on maybe gradually some solutions may come. So not it may not be taking off the fear, but it will make me fear less fearful and okay, accepting it. And because there will be, I myself will develop various ways and means, knowingly or unknowingly, not to get, not to brood over those fears
Right.
and get
Right.
depressed or get down.
Yeah.
That may
Yeah.
be coming out of the fear. That will be one of the ways.
Right. So
These
what
actions I can take.
yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, yeah, to just to kind of reinforce what you're saying, um, the understanding. So the first step was acceptance, and the next step is understanding, or rather two parts to it. So the understanding helps us dissolve the fear. So yeah, it no more stays as an obstacle to us doing things or not doing things, but the fear itself doesn't need to go away. So it is just there. It actually is there to help us, and it is there. It's part of us, so it's there. So we are not removing the fear per se. We're not trying to conquer the fear. We're just understanding it, and that understanding helps us use the fear in our life and keep it with us as a caution, as something which keeps us balanced, as something which keeps us more aware of what we are doing. So it becomes a friend rather than we trying to push it out like an enemy. So that is where the understanding helps. Angelina, you want to share something?
Fact that analogy, fear becomes your
Yeah.
Yeah, Rajneesh.
Yeah, I saw the mic, so
Can you
I
hear
thought,
me, Rajneesh?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, when you were just talking to Nalini, I was trying to understand my fear
Mm-hmm.
of that plane station thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think helped me, and I am trying to accept the fear. I think next time when I travel by plane, I won't be that much fearful. Uh, I'm trying to understand the thing more. It takes some time, but really it helped me. Coming easier, I try to understand my fear, what the fear was.
Right. The key is to understand it, and these are the three things you would do. You will get familiar with it, and then you explore it, which is what we were doing with Nalini. Explore it using different views, different tenses, and also next time you're planning to fly a day in advance, 2 days in advance, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Talk to your spouse. Write it down. Write your thoughts, beliefs. Just make friends with it. It's like you're packing your suitcase, you're also packing your heart and mind for the trip. And not that your heart will not be fearful. It's good to be fearful. It's all right to be fearful and be that. But you will enjoy the fear and you will be with it, maybe in harmony with it rather than trying to push it out like an enemy. So we're trying to convert what looks like an enemy. I'm saying looks like because it isn't an enemy, and convert that
Okay.
into somebody who is a friend.
Okay. Okay. Try my best next time.
Yeah.
Ratnesh, it was the session was very, very therapeutic. And something that I read about, see,
Sorry,
is
your voice.
about the
Yeah.
demons we have.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read something similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's the demons that we have, guilt or need or resentment. And
Mm-hmm.
when you try to accept them as your diamonds, they become learning for you. Something that you don't have to fight against, you can just be them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not so overpowering anymore, uh, showing you a different perspective.
Yeah. Your voice was partly breaking, Ekta, so I could hear part of it, not fully.
Okay.
So you're saying something similar, where not to fight the demons and actually look at them as your friends. Yeah, that's the whole idea. So you have the acceptance part and the understanding part, and also just to mention, there are more slides in the presentation. I'll send you the link. There are more. So use different things. Use role plays, especially when you're working with children. Use role plays. Use drawing. Use acting. Use talking. So talking need not be the only way to understand or to travel in past or future, but you can use a variety of mediums, and the more you use imaginary things, the more you use, the more different kinds of mediums that we use, the more we kind of make friends with them, right? So uh, uh, in some ways it connects very directly to learning. We say when we learn something, we what do? We actually make friends with a concept, right, or a skill. Let us say you don't know how to cycle. Now, the day you start learning cycle, initially it looks like a demon only, but slowly you make friends with it, and the more you make friends, the better you learn, right? So, learning is nothing but making friends. In a similar way, when we have a fear, when we learn the fear, so we are learning about the fear and learning the fear itself. So when we learn the fear, we kind of make friends with it, which is, to me, this making friends and learning is the same thing. In our real world, in our physical world also, when we make friends with a human being, we actually learn about that human being. The more we learn about that person, the more we kind of become friends with it. For somebody whom we don't know anything about, we are not friends with that person. So it's almost the same thing. Yeah, sorry, somebody was sharing something. I just wanted to finish this.
Yeah, Ritesh,
Yeah.
it's on a funnier side. When I was imagining things, I just want to thank you. I traveled to Paris. I did a lot of shopping and eating also. Thanks a lot.
And without spending any money on it. That's
Yeah, yeah.
the
I just I just fly over the ocean without fear and went to Paris, did lot of shopping and eating.
great, great. Okay, so I think we can kind of pause here. Anybody wants to share a thought or a question? We are at 12:30, so we can kind of stop here. And if anybody wants a specific topic for the next fire burner, you can also mail it across to me. And yeah, so we'll anybody any thoughts, or if you want to say a bye bye thought, you can share it in the chat window, or you can come on voice. But we are kind of good with what we have covered today. I think we've covered quite a lot. Thank you very much.